I don't know about you, but a six-pack of soda sounds pretty good right about now. However, I think there's something better than that. How about a six-game point streak for your Carolina Hurricanes?
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about sure Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also an AHL writer at the Calder Times. I'm the co-host of the Searchcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun Thursday show for you guys as we get to kind of unpack, which is this Hurricanes 6-game point streak as they go into their last game of February against the Chicago Blackhawks, who are the players to watch for your Carolina Hurricanes going into the last game of January, and what are the keys to that game? But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, like I said, the Carolina Hurricanes have been on a insane run in terms of the last 6 games. Yes, they lost in overtime to the New York Islanders, but you look at overall, what a way to just come back from a 6-1 December where you're playing 500 hockey. It is what it is. But then you come into the month of February, and right now at the end of the month, where you had a back-to-back, 3 straight Metro games. Now you have the Chicago Blackhawks for the last game of the month, and you're in the middle of a 6-game point streak that dates back to the win against the Vegas Golden Knights on the 17th. But if you want to look overall in terms of the entire month of January, so overall for the entire month, the Carolina Hurricanes are 9-3-2. Like I said, talk about a bounce back. Like, you go through December, it's a struggle month. You said you go 500, you're 6-1. We're relatively still in a good spot in the playoffs. You're still third in the division. Now you're second. Still trying to catch up to the Washington Capitals, but you rebound from a 500 month of December where you're 6-1, like I said. Now you're 9-3-2, and you're in the middle of a 6-game point streak that started with that 3-2, like I said, that 3-2 win over the Vegas Golden Knights. Then you got the back-to-back where you beat the Blackhawks in overtime in that comeback. You beat Dallas the next night 2-1. You beat the Columbus Blue Jackets back at home 7-4. Then you lose on the island 3-2 to the Islanders. But then you go and shut out the New York Rangers 4-0 to take a 3-0 series lead in the regular season. And now you go into the last game of the month against the Chicago Blackhawks, who you just beat 10 days before on that Monday in overtime. And now, of course, big thing too is it's Taylor Hall's first game against the Hawks. Like, talk about a quick change of scenery for him over the last 10 days. But this is something that's really huge for the Carolina Hurricanes, because you're talking, you got 8 points out of a possible, you got 9 points out of a possible 10. Just since the Hawks game. But if you look at the fact that overall the 6 games, you have 11 out of the last 12. That is a huge run if you're the Carolina Hurricanes. Yes, would you have liked to gotten, did better in Buffalo? Would you love to get that win against the Ducks to where this streak could have been a lot longer? Possibly. But you bounce back from that game against Buffalo. You beat Vegas. You beat the Blackhawks and the Stars. You really put it to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yes, like I said, you lose to the Islanders. It is what it is, but you got a point out of it. It's the first game for a bunch of, 2 new guys, whole different roster shakeup. But then you respond like that again against New York Rangers. This is, the way people are so excited for all these games coming up now, just for the fact of what the injection of Hall and Rantanen have been. The last 2 games is, you got 3 points out of a possible 4 with the 2 new guys. But the way the team played against the New York Rangers really has set up a spot to where no matter who they're playing, it could be the Blackhawks on Thursday, the LA Kings on Saturday. Everyone's excited for what's to come. And the fact that the Hurricanes started this run even before they got their 2 additions in Ranson and a Hall, and you look at how, Jesperi Kotkaniemi's kind of, rejuvenated. He's on a 5-game point streak in the middle of this 6-game point streak for the team. He's playing out of his mind right now. Andrei Svechnikov goes and gets 3 points against the Rangers, and the 2 primary assists are from the new guys. Like, he's on an electric run, and you can just tell like the team is really vibing right now with their new guys, and you can tell even Taylor Hall is really excited to where he's at right now. Of course, he was on What Chaos talking about how he wants to stay in Carolina. He wants to stop moving around, and if he keeps playing like the way he is, I could definitely see something where that works out. It's just. It's like excitement on top of excitement for the Carolina Hurricanes right now. Because like I said, you go into you look over these last 6 games. Were they pretty? Some of them were, some of them weren't. But you take care of business against the Vegas Golden Knights. You bounce back after that tough loss to the Sabres. Yes, you had to come back against the Blackhawks, but then you have Jesperi Kotkaniemi just showing out against the Dallas Stars. Then you come home for your first home game since the Vegas one, and you just won that back-to-back. And you just absolutely, like, you're down 2-0. It's like, okay, it's not the greatest. This team that came back before, because they did it against the Blackhawks, could they do it again? And they absolutely do it with a 5-goal period, which is insane to think about. Then they run away with it. And then it's, you go to New York, you get, 3 out of a possible 4, but you blank the Rangers at Madison Square Garden. Like, this is a run of just really great hockey. Like, it's like slowly building on top of itself to where it's, okay, they played well against Vegas, had to do a comeback against Chicago, had to basically kind of shut it down against the Dallas Stars. You come back against the Jackets and you beat the brakes off them. Lose a tight one against the Islanders where you're up 2-0. Then just some wacky stuff happens. What can you do? And plus, it's new guys on the team. Then you go again. Then you have 2 days off. You finally get a practice. You finally get a morning skate for Hall and Ranson to kind of get used to the system. And then you go and shut out the Rangers. You basically just blow the doors off the place and basically sweep the Rangers in their own building in the regular season. And it's just that slow, continuous build of the team is getting better, and then you get a couple of additions. Then you're trying to reincorporate those guys in the middle of this run, and you're still carrying on your points. Like, you have a shot to, if you beat the Blackhawks, I think it should be when you beat the Blackhawks, not if. But it's just like the last time. This is not a must win, but this is a can't lose type of game, which we'll talk about later in the show. This is putting you in a good spot to where you could finish out the month of January with 10 wins on the docket for yourself to where you're going to be 10-3-2. You're looking at a possible 22 points to round out the month of January, and that's after you get 13. You get 13 in December, and then you bounce back with 22 if you get that win against the Blackhawks. That is such a huge jump back to where you're a little bit behind the Devils. You catch them. Now you pass them. Now you're trying to catch the Capitals. That sets you up perfectly for the little bit of games that are left in February. Because when you look at where we're going to after January, it's not far off to where now you go into February. You're home against the Kings. Then you've got 2 days off before you go to Winnipeg. Then you got Minnesota again at their place. And then you come back home for a 1:00 Saturday game on the 8th against Utah. And then you're off until the 22nd to where you play the Toronto Maple Leafs. So once you're done with the Blackhawks, you got 4 more games until the 4 Nations break. You beat the Blackhawks to finish January. You're setting yourself up perfectly to play 3 really good Western Conference teams who are fighting for playoff spots, fighting for seeding over there. And then, of course, you got Utah, who you kind of want to get a revenge win against those guys after you kind of laid a dud in Utah. So you have 4 more games coming up, with 3 of them being the really big boys of the Western Conference and a revenge game against Utah. You could go into the break with a bigger run of points. Now, like I said, if you go and take care of business against the Blackhawks like you should, there's 22 points for January. Now you're on a 7-game point streak, and now you've won back-to-back games. Now you could take that and run with it to where do you take, where do you sit with those 4 games? Do you take all 4? Do you take a couple of those? If you at least win 2 of those games going to start February before the break, that's setting you up really good for the rest of the month, where the back end's only got 3 games. So you don't really have a lot of February games to come into, but just to where you're at right now with this 6-game point streak, to put yourself in an opportunity to go from, like I said, you had a 500 December. Now you're looking at 10 wins in January, and that's with a loss you shouldn't have against the Sabres, a backbreaker against the Ducks, and that's even including the 4-0 shutout against the Minnesota Wild, which you're kind of like, you kind of wish that game was better. But overall, though, you've managed to find a way to win games when necessary, and doing it in a way where it's like, okay, this team is growing and they're kind of working their way out of what was going on. Plus, Frederik Andersen's back too, so that's a big boost where he's sitting at. So there's a lot of things working in the Hurricanes' favor right now. And that's, like I said, now you're injecting Hall and Rantanen for this long stretch right now. You're not getting them at the deadline. Now you got them for the rest of this month. Then you got them for the few games going into February before the break, and then you come out of it. Then now it's, once you get back against Toronto on the 22nd, now it's a sprint to the finish towards the playoffs. And with the momentum the Hurricanes are taking, if they can carry this momentum into the 4 Nations break, building off of this 6-game point streak run that they're on right now, who knows? Who knows what you're looking at when you go into that break and then you come out of it. So it's very exciting right now to be a Carolina Hurricanes fan, just watching what this team is doing, and the fact that that game against New York was what this team should be. And even Rod Brind'Amour saying that you're seeing a transition in this team where you're seeing how it's the things that they want to work are starting to work. And that's making it so exciting for that you've been waiting all season for this team to go back to what they were doing at the start of the season, where you start 14-4. And now you're getting that incorporation of, okay, that style is coming back, but you're also getting the injection of a first overall pick who's won an MVP, and you get a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer who's already won a cup and is on another historic 100-point season run. It gives you a good indication that the rest of this season is going to be a lot of fun to watch, and you just got to enjoy this 6-game point streak, and you're hoping to see that continue as we go along, especially when they play the Chicago Blackhawks tonight on Thursday at Lenovo Center. So speaking of which, we will preview it with players to watch and where both teams are at in their last 10 games. So stick around. I will go over that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. I remember the excitement and the energy of a playoff game I attended last year, and I'm looking forward to making new memories this season. Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, we kind of talked about that 6-game winning streak, what we could possibly be looking at in terms of this team kind of keeps building on that run they're on right now, where they're taking points. You got some additions. You do lose your winning streak, but you still have that point streak going, and then you extend it against the Rangers. So Thursday night, do we see it once again to where the Hurricanes sweep the Chicago Blackhawks in the regular season 2-game set between these two teams, and do they extend this game point streak to 7? Well, Thursday night is a 7 o'clock puck drop, which will be on FanDuel Sportsnet South between the Chicago Blackhawks, who are 16-29-5 against your 31-16-4 Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, the last time these two teams played was 10 days ago, where the Hurricanes won 4-3 in overtime against the Blackhawks. Now, the last 10 games, you definitely tell this big difference between the two sides. The Carolina Hurricanes are 7-1-2 in their last 10, and that's including the 4-game winning streak against Vegas, Chicago, Dallas, and Columbus, that overtime loss to the Islanders, and of course that shutout win against the New York Rangers. If they didn't lose that game to Buffalo, they would have been on a 10-game point streak, because they beat Toronto and Vancouver earlier, in this run, and they did lose in overtime to the Ducks. So if they even got a point against Buffalo, they would be on a 10-game point streak. But honestly, though, winning 7 of your last 10 puts you in a good spot when you basically talking about Toronto as a playoff team, Vancouver's going trying to fight for a playoff spot. Vegas is a playoff team, so is Dallas. Columbus is trying to get into it, and then you got the Islanders and the Rangers and Anaheim and Buffalo and Chicago. But either way, you're putting yourself in a good spot where you're beating teams it's like almost measuring stick games. Now, for the Blackhawks, 3-4-3 in their last 10. Of course, that includes a 4-game losing streak to Detroit, Edmonton, Calgary, and a shutout loss to Nashville. However, though, they have beaten Colorado, Vegas, and they just beat Tampa Bay on Tuesday night. So they do have some momentum on their side with that win against Tampa Bay, and that was 4-1. And like I said, they've beaten Vegas and they've beaten Colorado, which is crazy when you look at the fact that it's the Chicago Blackhawks and they're 16-29-5, which is basically bottom of the league. But they somehow beat better teams, even though they might lose to them earlier in the week, like Tampa, or it's weird how the fact of how they've been playing so well against Colorado, but it is what it is. Now, looking at the goalies real quick, Peter Mrazek, 9-17-2 with a 326 goals against and an 895 save percentage. Arvid Soderblom, 7-11-3 with a 288 and a 910 save percentage. Not really sure who the Blackhawks are going to go with. Maybe they might go with Mrazek like the last time they played the Hurricanes, or they might go with Arvid Soderblom. So it's going to be very interesting to see what avenue the Blackhawks go down. Now, yes, they did beat Tampa, but now they're going against the Carolina Hurricanes, who now has Taylor Hall, which this might be a good revenge game for Hall, not in the fact of any ill will, but it's like, hey, you traded me from you. I'm going to take that free space that everyone talks about where a former player scores against his former team. He hasn't registered a shot yet for the Hurricanes, but if this is a game for Taylor Hall to do it, wouldn't be bad. So you would love to see that for him to get his first goal along with Mikko Rantanen, which we'll talk about key players to watch here in a second. Now for the Hurricanes, Pierre Kachekov, 18-9-3 with a 248 and a 903 save percentage with a shutout. Frederik Andersen on a 6-game winning streak. That goes back to the couple games after where he did lose a home opener, but has won the next 6 games after that. 6-1-0 with a 184 goals against and a 924 save percentage and a shutout, which, as we know from Wednesday's show, he became the 4th goalie for the Hurricanes in a season to get a shutout. So you'd love to see that. Since he went with Frederik Andersen on Tuesday against the Rangers, do not be shocked if they go with Pierre Kachekov against the Chicago Blackhawks, since he really hasn't played since the Islanders game. So it'll be very interesting to see with the extended rest that he's going to get between Saturday and all the way to Thursday, but he should be fine. It's Pierre Kachekov. I would definitely say that you're probably going to see Piotr in this game, just that way they're not having him sit for too long. Now, looking at players to watch, and of course, we're going to start with the visiting Chicago Blackhawks. Surprise, surprise. To no one, it's Connor Bedard, 44 points in 50 games, just a tad shy under 20 minutes per game. Of course, he had a really ridiculous goal against the Tampa Bay Lightning. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. He is a minus 22 on the season, however, though, so that top line is getting burned a lot this season for the Blackhawks. The other guy you want to watch for? Well, Teravainen, 34 points in 50 games, just over 16 and a half minutes of ice time, but he is also a minus 14. Now, looking at the defense, I would say maybe keep an eye on Seth Jones. He is playing almost 25 minutes a night. Does have 23 points in 33 games, but is a minus 9. But he has been kind of on a roll recently to where he has 7 points in the last 5 games for the Hawks, 5 of those being assists. So definitely want to keep an eye on a guy like that with Seth Jones. While they are a struggling team, he hasn't really had a lot of great games. Assist-wise, he has been contributing when it needed to be for the Blackhawks. Now, for your Carolina Hurricanes, obviously this one should be no shocker for 2 of these guys. It is going to be Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall. Now, with the fact that you look at how, with Mikko Rantanen, he just got his first point for the Hurricanes, so it was assist. Same thing for Taylor Hall, who just got his first assist as well. So you definitely want to keep an eye on these guys as, we go into their first regular season game as a Carolina Hurricane, and how you want to see how these guys do at Lenovo Center in front of the home crowd, because these Taylor Hall hasn't been to Carolina yet in terms of with the Blackhawks, and Mikko Rantanen was here back in December for the Avalanche. But you look at how this is a big game for the fact that the fans get to see these new guys in person, but the fact that these guys get to check out Carolina for the first time. And it's one of these things where, Mikko Rantanen has played 18 minutes and 48 seconds for the Canes. He is a +2, does have a point, does have 8 shots already. So that's a nice little start if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, for the fact that he's finding a way to kind of already incorporate himself. Like I said, we saw that really great pass they had to Andrei Svechnikov for the second goal. He's already kind of establishing himself as someone who's going to be a force, and you're really excited to see what happens with him as, the weeks go on. You're like hoping, is it going to, are we going to see Mikko get extended? How's he feeling with the team in Carolina? Now with Taylor Hall, in his 2 games with the Hurricanes, he does have a point. He's also a +2. No shots yet, but he has played 14 minutes and 57 seconds of total, of total ice time per game. So it's not bad when you look at the fact that he started on the lower lines against the Islanders and kind of moved his way up. And then he played second line with the Hurricanes against the New York Rangers. And honestly, you can tell right from the jump that he brings an aspect to the game where Roy Brammer's already been impressed with him. You can already tell that it's like just his way he uses his body, the way he forechecks. It's like Taylor Hall, and he even said it on What's Chaos, is the fact that he loves how the Hurricanes are such a metric team, where it's like they're not maybe looking at stat sheets, but what are you doing off puck? What are you doing off the score sheet that maybe other teams won't really look at? And the way he, with possession, the way he uses his body, the way he plays his game of forechecking and just creating chances. Maybe it's not a bunch of assists or a bunch of goals, but he's finding a way to incorporate himself to where he's effective. He's another version of Jordan Stahl, where it's like he's a big-bodied guy who's really good on the forecheck and really good with the physicality. So this is where it's something it kind of works in his favor. So this is something that's going to be very huge. And I think, with the analytics of what the Hurricanes do and what Taylor Hall's game is, that's a good fit. And with these 2 of Rantanen and Hall, you are hoping that they get their first goals in front of Lenovo Center on Thursday, because that would be huge. It would blow the place off. It would be fantastic for sure. Now, another guy we definitely need to talk about for the Carolina Hurricanes, one to definitely keep an eye on for, is Andrei Svechnikov. He has been on a run recently of all runs, 37 points in 51 games. He is a -2 right now, but he's averaging over 17 and a half minutes. Does have 17 goals after he got the 2 against New York Rangers, but Svechnikov right now has 4 points in his last 5 games. Of course, 3 of those came against the New York Rangers, but you're slowly seeing Andrei Svechnikov finding his game again, to where you see him being that power forward that we all know he can be. And that's, I think, something that's going to be very huge for the Hurricanes, is that he's had kind of a slow start. You got to tell he's not really trying to be physical, but you've seen it recently where that physicality, that power forwardness is coming back out of him. It's almost like having Hall and Rantanen is kind of given like this, I don't have to be the guy all the time to go throw the big hits or go use go be the big power forward. You added 2 guys who are kind of essentially like that. So you're letting him kind of find his game once again. And now you're seeing it. He pops off against the Rangers, and he does it with 2 assists from the 2 new guys. So you're kind of like, okay, is Andre officially back? Is this the Andrei Svechnikov that we've been kind of waiting for all season? Has this finally kicked him into the next gear? And the way he scored against the Rangers, you have to be excited for when he plays the Chicago Blackhawks, because if he builds off that game and gets himself ready for this one, sky's the limit for Andrei Svechnikov, and you just love to see it overall. Now, we talk about the players to watch, kind of talk about the last 10 possible goalie matchups. What are the keys of the game? Well, you stick around. I'll tell you the keys to the game here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, we went over the players to watch. We went over goalie matchups, last 10. Now, what are we kind of looking for at this juncture of what are the keys of the game? Well, for this, I know it's cliche, it's overused all the time, but special teams is going to have to be a big one for this one, because the Hurricanes are 18th on the power play at 20.8%, to where the Blackhawks are actually 8th at 24.2%. Here's the caveat, though. The Hurricanes are first in the penalty kill at 86% after going 3 for 3 against the New York Rangers. But I will say the Blackhawks are 11th at 81.3%. So you have, outside of the Hurricanes being 18th on the power play, you have the Blackhawks who are top 12 in the entire league on the power play and the penalty kill. But the Hurricanes do have the best penalty kill in the NHL. So depending on how this game goes, if you have a power play against the Blackhawks, you have to take advantage if you're the Hurricanes. You're like 1 for your last almost 40 at this point. We have Shane Gostisbehere back. You got Mikko Rantanen on the first power play unit. You got Taylor Hall on the second power play unit. This is the time where you kind of have to force your will on the power play. You got to start scoring at the rate you were doing. We're not even saying get back to top 5, but just getting back into the top 10 would be very huge. And, of course, if you're on the penalty kill, shut them down. Do what Aho and Jarvis have been doing. Go get that shorthanded goal. They've done it enough this year. Why not keep doing it again? So this is the thing where you have to take advantage of where you can. If you get the power play, just keep the puck moving, find the open guys, and just take advantage of it, because you have a guy like Mikko Rantanen now, and you got Shane Gostisbehere back as your point man. This is an opportunity for the power play unit to go absolutely off and get going. And like I said, the penalty kill is still playing really well too. Another key is start early and just end this early, because the Blackhawks right now are 31st in goals for per game at 2.62, and they're also 29th in goals allowed at 3.4. They don't score a lot, and they give up a lot of goals. Yes, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-1, but like I said, they're 16, 29, and 5 for a reason. Their goaltending, Soderblom, outside of his record, not bad in terms of save percentage. Pierre Mrazek, not so much. But you're talking about a team who doesn't score and a team who gives up a lot of goals. The Hurricanes are 5th in goals for at 3.35, and they are 8th in goals allowed at 2.71. The Hurricanes don't give up a lot of goals, and they score a lot of goals. So if you're Carolina coming into this game against the Blackhawks, who give up a lot and don't score a lot, this should not be any reminiscent of that 4-3 overtime win. It's this first game for Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall at Lenovo Center as Carolina Hurricanes. You want to get that barn rocking early, often, and the whole time. 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey. You know what they did against Vegas. You saw what they did against the Columbus Blue Jackets. albeit they were down pretty early, had to come back in the second period and have 5 goals in that middle frame. This is where you have to take advantage early and just keep your foot on the gas and get this game out of the way as soon as possible. Go and just have Lenovo Center rocking, have the fans into it, get Chicago on their back heels. Basically, it's just right from the jump. Like how you scored early against the Rangers, do it against the Blackhawks and just keep that momentum up for the entire game. That's all you really need to do. And the third key, really, it kind of ties into the whole starting the game early. Just play a full 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey. We saw that against the Rangers. You know they can do it. They did it really well against them. You should be able to do that against the Chicago Blackhawks. And the thing is, they've played down to a lot of their opponents for a good part of the season, even to the Sabres. The OT loss to the Ducks in that fourth win over the Blackhawks. They played down to their opponents. That has to stop. This of you go and beat the good teams, you play well against them, but then you play kind of down to the opponent. It's kind of like you overlook them. Every game is you can't overlook teams, and I've been saying that for a while now. Anyone can beat anyone. Then this is your opportunity to not do that. Just go and play 60 minutes of hockey that we saw against the Rangers, do it against the Blackhawks, and just go and just win this game early. Take them out of this game quick, have that hot start, and just ride the momentum. Like, it doesn't make sense to play down and overlook an opponent. Just go out there and do what you need to do. Take care of business. Go get that 10th win in January and finish with 22 points in the month, and wipe your hands with January and get ready for the stretch run in February. You have 4 games before the Four Nations break. So let me know in the comments if you're on YouTube, what are your keys of the game and what players are you going to be watching for the Carolina Hurricanes against the Chicago Blackhawks? What that will do an episode of Locked On, the Thursday edition of the pod. Thank you for your first listen of the day. For your second listen, well, why don't you go check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey? Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from steal and flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I am also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I do have link trees in both my bios where you can check out my articles, especially at the Hockey Writers, or just go to thehockeywriters.com, search my author page at Zach Martin. You can find all my stuff over there. For the Calder Times, if you want to keep up with all my AHL content, well, caldertimes.com. You can find me over there to check out all that type of stuff. If you want to check my other podcast, which is the Searchcast, well, the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, it's on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. Just search Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, follow, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit me up with a thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well, because it helps with the algorithm so that way more fans can check out this podcast. And speaking of checking out this podcast, why don't you share with all other Caniacs and become everydayers just like you and keep building this awesome community of Carolina Hurricanes fans. I hope everyone enjoyed this Thursday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. I hope everyone enjoys their Thursday and especially watching the Carolina Hurricanes against the Chicago Blackhawks. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.